we're discussing international justice in light of the transfer of Ivory Coast's former president, Laurent Gbagbo, to the International Criminal Court in The Hague. He's in the same cell block as Liberia's former president, Charles Taylor. With us to talk about it, Florence Hartmann, former spokesperson for the International Courts on Yugoslavia and Rwanda, and whose book in French, Peace and Punishment, put you at loggerheads directly with the ICC because they were upset over some of what you uncovered, most notably of the Srebrenica massacre.
Yes, they were upset because of that, but it's the other tribunal, the one for the former Yugoslavia. And I criticize because I support really international justice, and sometimes they are playing in the hand of those who are against by doing more politics than justice. And there was a deal with the state about hiding evidence, and then I explained how the judge did that, and they went mad and tried me, and then now.
Right, so you put the politicking on paper, and they didn't like it. Maybe we'll broach that also a little bit more.
But
from
the credibility of international justice depend on this impartiality, but also this separation from the politics.
All right, and from Cotonou, Benin, also with us, Francis Dacko. He also has an inside eye to what goes on in The Hague with the Coalition for the International Criminal Court, an advocacy group that works with the ICC. And Matt Wells of Human Rights Watch, who is with us from Washington. Before the break, Matt Wells spelling out some of the atrocities committed on both sides. We've gotten a lot of feedback from you on our social networking sites. Let's look at reaction here from Twitter, from Tabelo, from Botswana. And he says, I think President Ouattara should also face the music. He, too, is responsible for people's deaths. And on Facebook, Tonese from Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The ICC is more reliable than an African court. Gbagbo must pay for all the people that died because of him. Not everyone agrees, though. Makaria from Nyeri in Kenya. This is racism at its best. The ICC is a manipulated court and works for some Western forces. Will this end impunity or help Ivory Coast with its reconciliation? No. Period. And Segun, why Gbagbo? When are they going to arrest Bush and Blair? That a nod to the invasion of Iraq back in 2003. Francis Dacko, the reactions that you read there, do you confronted with them sort of on a daily basis in your work?
Yeah, we hear some reaction, and while I agree that we as CICC, that's the Coalition for the International Criminal Court, we think that while it's necessary to critically assess that this kind of reaction, we are not prepared to accept any kind of criticism. We need to ask ourselves whether retribution is a sufficient deterrent to those who violate human rights. It's clear that the court intervention is something very important to end impunity all over the world, and the Africa as a whole give the evidence that the court is very, very important for Africa. While you look at the NGO composed of the CICC, we have 800 NGO who are working for a very strong ICC in all over the world. And the other thing which is very, very important, when you look at the African state members, 33 out of 55 members are CICC, are state party. So it's very, very important to understand that the ICC is not targeting Africa in its work. It's very, very important to make everyone understand that the ICC is just trying to render justice for victims. And when it happens that sometimes people criticize the ICC for having political agenda, they should bear in mind that between year 2003 and year 2005 is the African government themselves, the DRC, Uganda, CAR, that refer situation to the court, and the court has to exercise its jurisdiction over these referrals. So I'm not very comfortable with this way of saying that the ICC has a political agenda, the court is using Africa as a Guinean pig, the court is just experimenting.
Are you saying, in other words, Francis, that Tonese, when he says that the ICC is more reliable than an African court, are you saying he has a point?
Yeah, I mean, the point is clear. The court is a permanent justice and is there to stay. And the national court sometimes has no ability and sometimes they have no capacity to handle this type of justice. So they simply refer their case to the International Criminal Court for the court to give justice to victims. So I'm not sure that the way they are going about this criticism is very transparent, is very reasonable. There is no legal ground, although we as a coalition, we accept some positive criticism on the way to look at what we are doing, on the way the court is operating in Africa and all over the world. My opinion is still clear that the ICC is not targeting Africa in its work.
Not targeting Africa. Not targeting Africa in its work, but if we can perhaps show a list of other cases being indicted by the court, and well, they're all, Florence Hartmann, in Africa. There are 6 other investigations that relate to crimes committed in Africa. Targets include, of course, the current. There you see the list as published by The Economist this past week, you see that most of them are in Congo, Sudan, of course, including the president, the sitting president, Omar al-Bashir. He's not expected anytime soon in The Hague. And the former Chadian leader, Hissène Habré, is under investigation. So far, it's been. Is it a case, as Francis has been saying, where the Africans have been cooperating with the court? Or is it a case?
No, it's. There is a need for investigation in Africa because there were many grave violations of crimes against humanity and others, and some countries did ask the ICC, and it's important to have this complementary system. Either you do it, but you really do it in your country, or you do not have the capacity, and then you can use the ICC. That was the way it was established. But the problem is that we have crimes of this magnitude in other countries, and we do not have investigation. The problem is not that we have Africa at the ICC. The problem is that we have missing investigation.
What comes to mind? What countries?
I don't know. You have in Afghanistan, in other places. You have in Asia. You have in different places. You cannot go only for Africa. And sometimes you have to look at those who could respond, that they have the judiciary for the investigation because they are big countries.
When you weigh up the pros and cons of your experience, personal experience, with the court in Rwanda, would you say that you've helped bring justice to Rwanda?
Well, bring justice is something very complicated, but at least you establish what happened. You prevent denial. The process is very long, and you can say maybe later if you brought justice or not. But there was no impunity. Those people were tried. They were not trying to prepare another war from the others to come back to power. They will not. There was a genocide. That's something which has been recognized. Everything has not been done in relation to Rwanda, which makes the problem, the answer to your question, difficult, because there were also crimes committed by Kagame forces, which were absolutely not the same magnitude. It was absolutely not genocide, but nevertheless, it was war crimes which should have been brought to justice, and justice would have shown that it was not the same magnitude, but that the victim deserved the truth. And the problem is that all victims are not getting
The same treatment.
the same treatment, recognition of what happened to them, what they're suffering, and that's why you have, for instance, this problem in Côte d'Ivoire, because they know that part of the victims, and probably the bigger number of them, will get justice through the ICC process, Gbagbo and maybe others, but some of them will not, and then that's why they will say, but it's not fair, and it's very difficult.
Let's pick up on that point with Matt Wells. Matt, right now, when you look at Ivory Coast itself, where for the Douekwe massacre, there's been, I understand, a committee that's been put in place, an investigation committee by the government, but no indictments so far. Are you expecting the Ivorians themselves to mete out any kind of justice?
Well, right now, as you say, we've seen more than 120 individuals from the Gbagbo camp charged by either a civilian or military prosecutor for post-election crimes, and not a single member of the Republican forces. So there have been committees put in place. There's a National Commission of Inquiry, but to date, no real substantive action against the pro-Ouattara forces. And this does lead to the perception of victor's justice. You hear it all the time, from average Ivoirians, not just the hardcore pro-Gbagbo militants. And so I think it does raise concerns, and it's something that the government needs to address quickly if it's going to gain credibility with the large number of Ivoirians who voted for Gbagbo but aren't, hardcore militants. And so I think, it's the ICC then has such an important role to play in bringing to justice someone from that side or multiple people from that side to kind of show the Ivorian government that real crimes were committed, that it can't, hide this, that people on their side have to be brought to justice as well.
And do you feel as though it does make some leaders think twice?
I think so. I think, we're starting to see a preventative aspect of the ICC. So when Liberia recently went to elections, you had politicians and others in the country referencing the violence in Côte d'Ivoire, referencing the fact that the ICC was being implicated. And so I think this starts to show leaders that they're not above the law, that if they engage in the types of behaviors that Gbagbo did, and bringing together the militia and his elite forces and targeting civilians, that they can be brought to justice, and hopefully in a number of places in the future that we'll start to see the impact of that. Because if the ICC can have a preventative impact, I think in some ways that's more important than anything else.
All right, last week we saw that there was the new justice minister in Libya who refused to extradite Saif al-Islam Gaddafi to The Hague for crimes committed since the start of the civil war there back in February. Francis Dacot, is that the story of a country taking its own justice in hand, or do you fear that it might be vigilante justice in the making soon, seeing what happened to his father?
I could say in the situation in Libya, we can say first that this is exactly the provision of the court. I mean, if you are able to bring to justice your own citizen, then you can exercise your prime jurisdiction over the person that is accused of committing human rights violation. But then, why prosecuting, or why you are leading this situation, if you did it in a way that is not conform to the provision of the international criminal of the Rome Statute, then the court has jurisdiction over this situation. So in the case of Libya, if the minister of, the court in Libya could handle perfectly the situation, that will be perfect. The ICC will follow up carefully, as they are doing, for instance, in Guinea, Conakry, and then if everything is correct, then the court has no jurisdiction. But if they fail to do so, then the court will have to react. And we are afraid that in the situation in Libya, we may be afraid of victor's justice against those who are brought before the case. But then we should wait and see and follow up carefully. We are afraid of winner's justice in Libya, given the fact that the courts, from our perspective, the court in Libya may not be able to prosecute and to handle perfectly this type of investigation and prosecution. But then if they provide that they could do so, then the court will have no jurisdiction over those people they brought before the court. So it's a situation that the court need to follow up carefully and make sure that we don't...
That there is proper due process there.
We don't have just... Yeah, exactly.
Florence Hartmann, there is one case where you can't really speak of winner's justice and that the court is involved in, and that's an acid test that everyone's following. It's Kenya, where right now you have 6 suspects. They haven't been formally charged, but they possibly face crimes against humanity, and they come from different ethnic groups in relation to those more than 1,000 people that were killed after the last election back in 2007. This is a big case.
Yes, it is, and that's important. It's very good to have justice done in the country, if possible. But you have not so many cases like that, where you take people from different places. I'm very surprised of the reaction last week of Ocampo, the ICC prosecutor, in relation to Libya, because for the moment he has absolutely no insurance that the judiciary will be able to do it. If he has not given up his authority to bring back the case or to oversee the preparation of the case by the local judiciary in order to give them an opportunity to do it, home, that's good, but I'm not sure. I'm afraid it's a political deal. It's perfect when you have a Kenya example, but I'm not sure that Libya is going on this way.
All right, and one final question for you. Since your time when you began working with the court, what's your feeling, the concept of international justice? How far has that come?
It didn't exist. We had impunity. Every leader would have been shot in the head like Gaddafi or like others. And we have justice. There is a place where to send these people, establish what happened, fight against the denial. It's the beginning of the end of impunity. It's not perfect, and it's not because it's not perfect, and it's just at the beginning that we have to give up, because we know what is without international justice or without justice in general. Then we need to push it, we need to criticize it to have it stronger, we need to ask prosecutors not to deal with politicians, and that's the public support which is necessary.
Public pressure on that score.
Public pressure, and no one is perfect, but we will help it to make it to be much impartial and much better.
All right, Florence Hartmann, I want to thank you. I want to thank Matt Wells for joining us from Washington. I want to thank Francis Taco for being with us from Cotonou in Benin, and thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate. Well, coming up next, we'll have definitely a good news story for you. Markets soaring after central banks intervene. Marcus Carlson has business.